Now let's catch up with a man who's got a really important role on January 21st. It's trainer of Chris Eubank Jr, one of the greatest to ever do it. It's Roy Jones Jr. Roy, good to see you. How are you?
I'm good, brother. Good to see you too, and I'm very good.
Good stuff. You look like you're on your way down to Brighton. How is camp going so far?
Camp has been going pretty good. You know, it's always entertaining with Chris because he's a very smart guy, and I love the way he approaches his battles. I would love his attitude when it comes to battle time because he becomes a different person, and that new person is a very entertaining person. Normally, he's kind of quiet and subtle, but when it comes fight time, he becomes very entertaining, and I love it.
That makes me laugh because that reminds me of a certain Roy Jones Jr. with that red button syndrome. When the red button went on, you were Mr. Entertainment. You knew how to entertain in front of the cameras, in the ring and out of it as well. Can you relate to him with that that kind of thing? The 50% stuff, the ring walk stuff, it's all very entertaining.
All of it. I love it all because you have to be creative. If you can't entertain people, then what makes you different from any other fighter? So he knows how to entertain verbally more so than anything because he has ways of doing little subtle things, wearing a KFC jacket, you know, talking about the 50%. So it's all awesome to me because when you can enjoy what you're doing while you're doing it and you can entertain other people while you're doing it, now you're doing something.
Yeah, we're in the entertainment business and we're all for it. Let me ask you though, now you know, and I know you know, and everybody knows you know, 50% of Chris Eubank Jr., does that mean that he thinks that at 50% he could beat Liam Smith, or are you guys taking this at 50% and he's not working as hard as he could do in the gym?
Never gonna take it 50% in the gym. You know, I'm a gym rat. I'm the kind of guy that if you're in the gym, we're gonna work. So we'll never do 50% in the gym. I don't care what nobody says, but we're never gonna do 50% in the gym because I respect every fighter, every opposition as a threat to us. So I will never be the guy who gives you 50% in the gym, and I don't think Chris would either. Maybe he's saying he only needs to use 50% of what he knows and use 50% of what he does, but he'll be 100% ready, yes.
Yeah, what's it been like behind closed doors in preparation for what we think is going to be a very, very entertaining fight?
He knows it's going to be a very entertaining fight. He knows it's kind of a crossroads fight for Liam Smith. So Liam has to bring everything he can to the table. This could be his last hurrah. And knowing that, Chris has to be ready for it. Now, the bad part about it is I know Chris, and then Chris is a guy who doesn't really get overly excited about much. You understand me? So coming off of getting prepared for Conor Benn, and then going back and get prepared for Liam Smith, it's a little bit different for him because the Conor Benn thing had a lot more deep ties to it because of the family issues. The Liam Smith thing is just more of a sparring issue that happened that they both have their own say so about, and now that sparring issue is about to come to fruition. So now whatever it was, the sparring, we get to find out what the real deal is, and that's the only thing I think that is helping push him in this fight.
Gary, I'm going to invite Gary. In fact, I'll ask it to you both. Liam Smith has said, you know, Chris Eubank Jr. can't box, he can only fight. And Roy, I've already asked you this, so I'll ask it to Gary first. But is Eubank Jr. a box fighter who can do both, or is he a fighter caught between styles?
Well, for me personally, Roy, I think he's a fighter caught between styles because we know the younger, more exciting, let his hands go Chris Eubank Jr., who I saw spar with George Groves and give him hell, and we've all seen the videos of him sparring with Carl Froch at a very young age, and when he took out the Turkish fella Yildirim, when he took him out, and I think that even against Liam Williams, he seemed to me to just be holding back rather than just letting his hands go, which has sort of taken away from the excitement factor of Chris Eubank Jr. Would you agree or not?
I would agree with that to a degree, except that the fact that with Liam Williams, he did hurt his hand early in the fight, and it wasn't able. I had to convince him to throw more, even though his hand was hurt, because he started to get too lackadaisical. But I knew it was because of the hurt hand. Anybody else, like I tell people, for me, Chris don't need me to beat these guys because the fighting Chris Eubank can beat both of these guys. However, he don't bring me here for these particular fighters. He brings me here to help him get better prepared for guys with bigger names like a Triple G or a Canelo. When you go with these guys, you can't be the old Chris that just goes out and lets his hands go. You gotta be a tactician. You gotta have a little bit more knowledge behind what you're doing. So he brings me here to get him ready for the fights that he's looking at down the line, not necessarily a particular Liam Smith or Liam Williams. I told him in the beginning with Liam Williams and Liam Smith, he don't need me for neither one of these guys. The old Chris Eubank is good enough to beat both of those guys. So I'm not saying that I'm the guy that, I'm God. I'm not. Because I can only add what I add, but it's his choice to use it, and he has to go out and do it. So he don't need me for Liam Williams. He really didn't need me for Liam Smith. But I know that he's also bringing in me because he wants to work on other elements of his game every time he goes training. And because he's looking down the line to the bigger fights when he knows he's going to need more than just going out there throwing, blasting people out with combinations that won't work against these bigger guys like Canelo or Triple G.
I absolutely agree with you on that point, because you do need the fights that he has lost is when he's been outboxed. He's gone to world level ability of boxing opponent, Ari, George Groves and Billy Joe Saunders, and he just couldn't really compete with their boxing acumen. So I can understand where you're coming from now on that point. You've had to give him that boxing sort of slant to his aggressive game, which is what we all knew him prior to working with you. So I totally understand that.
And would you argue, Roy, he can now beat you if he wants to fight you, or he can beat you if he wants to outbox you? You've made him twice as dangerous.
And that's what my plan was. That's what my goal was. That's what his father asked me in the very beginning. He said, I want to add longevity to my son's career. Can you do that for me? I said, without a question. And that's what I'm here to do. So fights like this are not the particular fights that I'm necessarily here for, because he don't need me to beat Liam Williams. He don't need me to beat Liam Smith. I mean, I don't think he needs me for those things, because he can fight the way he used to fight. I think he still can beat both of those guys. Not taking nothing away from those guys, but he's bigger than Liam Smith. And if he's bigger than Liam Smith, then a fight is a toe-to-toe fight is in his favor, because he's the bigger fighter. He's been fighting super middleweights and middleweights. Liam Smith been fighting junior middleweights and middleweights. So Chris is definitely the bigger fighter. In a trade-off, I mean, if they said, well, he and Liam gonna go 12 rounds toe-to-toe, good. He can do that because he's a bigger fighter. I don't feel like that's a threat to him, and he doesn't either. So,
one thing that you can really relate to is something that you just brought up there. I mean, talk about multi-weight world champion. You've got the T-shirt, you've got a wardrobe full, but you also know the dangers and the pitfalls and the challenges of coming up in weight. Is Liam Smith big enough? And that's unfortunate that I'm asking you as Chris Eubank's trainer, because you're also a world-class pundit. So you know, what are the big dangers for Liam Smith coming up in weight? Is it down the stretch as the rounds go on, or is it that Eubank will be a bigger, more powerful man against him? What is it?
Well, it all depends on how the fight goes, or how Chris chooses to fight the fight. If Liam comes in early and engages with Chris early, if Chris hurts him, it's going to be a problem, because Chris is the bigger fighter. At the same time, I think down the stretch is where Chris really gains momentum, because the longer the fight goes, the better it usually is for the bigger fighter. And
can Chris, I mean, every fighter says to us they've had a great camp and they make weight easy. Can Chris make middleweight easy enough and not take, leave it on the gym floor effectively?
Yes, he's very disciplined when it comes to making weight. He's very disciplined when it comes to training. So he makes weight with no problem. He would not leave the fight in the gym for sure.
Question to both of you. What does Chris Eubank Jr. have to do, aside from winning, to get a Golovkin or a Canelo, a marquee name? What does he have to do in this fight? Does he have to make a statement, or is it just about winning and business will take care of itself? Gary, I'll come to you first.
We'd like to believe that business will take care of itself, but an exciting win takes care of everything. I'm sure you'll agree, Roy. An exciting win where he comes out, demonstrates a lot of what him and Roy have been working on, keeping Liam on the end of. If he can bomb Liam long and still take him out, that would be amazing. That would be really exciting. And I would imagine that's the game plan. So if he does that in that fashion, going 12 rounds with Liam, he's still in that club. I personally believe for a lot of the leading middleweights, including Canelo and Golovkin, they're thinking this guy's too young, too active. Why do I actually need him? If he has another exciting win, then they're saying, all right, let's do this dance, because he brings a lot to the table. Would you agree, Roy?
Yeah, I think he brings a lot to the table anyway. However, I feel like a good fight against Liam Smith would definitely make them say, okay, here's a guy who's worthy, who has a name, who has a whole country behind him. Because now if you beat Liam, you're clearly the best middleweight on this side of the pond. So now let's bring the better middleweights on that side of the pond, or wherever they're from, and let's make it happen. So I think a good win and a stoppage for sure definitely makes people have to open their eyes and say, yes, this guy's definitely a contender. He deserves a shot.
If I did push you, you said there he could win by stoppage. Do you think he will win by stoppage? Are you allowed to give a forthright prediction?
No, I'm not allowed to get a prediction because that's all on him. It depends on what he chooses to do. Listen, my goal is to get this guy equipped so he can do anything he wants to do. If he wants to box, he can win boxing. If he wants to fight, he can win fighting. He already could win fighting. We already knew that before I got here. But now, because I'm here, if he chooses to box, we can win boxing too. So that's what the whole goal is, to be able to win in whatever fashion he wants to win it.
It's a wonderful fight because Liam brings so much experience to the table as well, and Liam is still ambitious. And I know in Joe Gallagher, they're up there concocting. He's not
Joe McNally and
Joe McNally,
O'Rourke.
yeah, and they're concocting a game plan to beat your man. So it's a great fight on paper. We can't wait to see it.
Roy,
I can't wait to see it.
Before I let you go, I think we're adopting you now, aren't we? You've got a gym based over here. You're racking up some fighters down in Kent, and sharing your time between Eubank in Brighton and Hove, and a gym down in Wade in Kent. So tell me, who's in the stable now? And it's quite a little team you're building.
Yeah, I got Tony Curtis, number one. Then I got Chris Eubank, number one. Then Tony Curtis. Then I got Archie Sharp, and I got Abdul Khan. So I got 4 European fighters now, 4 guys from this area, and I can't wait because they're all very promising. They all look really, really good, and it's just so good working with them because they get to learn things that they would normally not have gotten to learn being over here.
And are you all right over here? I mean, it's not for everyone. Every time I go to the States, I think to myself, why would anybody ever leave? But you're the opposite. You're leaving the States and coming over here.
Well, the thing about me is I love boxing. Anywhere that loves boxing the way the UK loves boxing, I'm there. So it's like, yes, we all got to work, we all got to fight, we all got things we got to do. But I really appreciate the Smith brothers and what they've done for boxing. I appreciate Eubank, and I appreciate everybody, the Tyson Furies of the world, because of the way they have done in boxing and the way that this country supports boxing. For any country that loves boxing, how could they not love me? And how can I not love them? So it's no love like a thing against nobody. I mean, yeah, we got to fight Liam Smith, but I appreciate Liam Smith and what they've done in boxing. I appreciate Chris Eubank and what he does in boxing, senior and junior. I appreciate Nigel and Conor, what they did in boxing. I appreciate everybody from this side and for what they've done for boxing and how much the fans come support them. Ricky Hattons, Amir Khans, everybody. I appreciate it. So to be able to come here and give these fans part of what I've learned to their fighters, to make their fighters, to raise their fighters to another level, is a beautiful thing for me. And I think it's something that was God sent for me, because the way it happened, I never would have expected to have 3 or 4 guys I'm training from the UK.
We love having you here. I've got 2 very brief questions before you go. So there are a number of people, and this isn't an insult, there are a number of people that know Roy Jones Jr. for Can't Be Touched rather than the amazing things you did in the boxing ring. On Spotify, how many times do you think Can't Be Touched has been played?
I know it's over 200 million.
It's 244 million times.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
And that is a true blessing from God, because there's no way that a boxer should have a record that's been played that many times on no outlet. You understand me?
I use it in my boxing class every week.
I see a picture of you in Russia at the traffic lights, and they're listening to Roy Jones Jr. and you walk down the window and you're in the car. I mean, it makes me laugh, but in a great way. It is an incredible thing. 244 million times that track has been played.
That's awesome. That, like I tell you, that goes to show you that when God is for you, who can be against you?
Yeah.
Because I didn't have to soul. I didn't do none of those things that a lot of people do to get that record played that many times. It was all the grace of God. And I'm very appreciative and thankful to God for what He's done for me.
God is great, bro. I'm telling you.
Second to last, the last question. It is a light-hearted story. I'd love to know your take on it. So I heard that you nearly sent Chris Eubank Jr. insane in Pensacola because he could not take the chickens anymore. So during lockdown, he came and lived with you and trained with you every single day. But I hear that the chickens waking up at all hours, it nearly sent him insane and he could not come back. Is that true? How do you come to terms with that?
If you want to learn some more, he know he can come back in the town. So, the only reason he hasn't been back here because he's fighting on this side of the pond and not that side. There's a fighting, and on that side of the pond, he'll be back in Pensacola.
I have to say that I remember when I was with David Hay, former world heavyweight champion, when he was a cruiserweight, and we were in a bar in Miami watching you defeat John Ruiz and making boxing history by becoming the world heavyweight champion. So I was thinking, you must miss that heat. It's just so, I love it out there.
You know what? I do miss the heat too, but the thing about me is I love boxing because I feel like that's what God gave me to relate to the world with. So boxing, I love so much that if you put me in an environment where the people love boxing, that's like heaven. And in this environment, we know the people here love boxing. That's heaven for me.
Good stuff. Well, Roy, pleasure talking to you as always. We're looking forward to fight week. Good luck last few days of camp with Chris down there in Brighton. Fingers crossed everyone stays healthy and well, and we'll see you next week in Manchester.
All right, my brother. Thank you guys for having me, okay?